What's up, Internet? You're tuning in to episode 16 of Nintendo Noise, Flip Screen Games' weekly Nintendo podcast. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined, as always, by my very good friends and co-hosts, Mr. Stephen Radford.
Hello.
And the mayor of Haken himself, Mr. Chuy.
Hi there.
Welcome back, boys. It is, you know what? I'm happy to say we got a big new game release. Pokémon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl just out, just days at this point. I am in full Pokemania. I am very excited to chat about it with you two. How we doing this week?
Doing great. Also playing Pokemon, as always. Buy them all. I don't know why, but they just keep coming out, so I
You
get
gotta
them.
buy them all.
You know, as expected, I'm not playing Pokemon because it's the one Nintendo franchise I just have never bought into.
Oh,
Who
the
was
only
it that
one,
was
huh?
talking to you? Who was it that was? You said your friend was talking to you, like doing a podcast with Nintendo podcast with someone who doesn't like Pokemon. Like that must be difficult.
Yeah. I was talking about it with someone, I don't remember, and they were rattling off Nintendo franchises, and I was like, oh yeah, Steve doesn't like that, doesn't like that, doesn't like that, and they're like, wow, must be tough.
Yeah, well, you know, you two more than make up for it, and I can just ask you questions about it. It's great. Makes my life easy this week. I have got very little to say.
Yeah, you get to
my throat.
You get to play the role I've had with the Animal Crossing expansion and just be a journalist today.
Yeah, true.
You both need to play all the games. That's all I'm saying.
Every game that comes out, I know. Well, don't worry. So one of these days I'll quit my job and I'll just become a full-time video game player, and then we'll get to all the games. But until that day, that's what we got each other for, right? We can lean on each other, cover the gaps as much as we can. Because as we found out when we went and looked, I think only 2 of the best, top-rated games this year that we haven't touched in the top 30.
And Chewy may have played one of those. I don't know.
One of them we had never heard of, and the other one was Monster Hunter, and I don't think that's a Chewy franchise. So,
You know, I have almost gotten into Monster Hunter this year. I got it for my birthday, Monster Hunter Stories 2, and I played through the demo, but there's been so many releases that I haven't gotten into it yet. Like, I haven't gotten to, even click A and play it. It's on that menu, and I'm like, oh man, I keep forgetting I have this. It's probably a very long game.
yeah, what's that like, Chewy? Me, I've still got Hitman 3 just in the shrink wrap here, haven't touched it. Halo came out.
Exactly.
That reminds me of my dad. We bought him a box set of Blu-rays, or must be a decade ago. He has never opened them. It's still sealed. It's now at the point where he's like, I don't really want to watch them because the 4K ones are out now, and I really want to get this as 4K. And I'm like, are you serious?
You gotta replace them now. That's the
That's
problem.
Still sealed box set. It's ridiculous.
Hey, you know what? And it's a collector's item now. Can only appreciate in value from here. But like I said, we're going to be talking all about Pokemon, but we're also going to have a little conversation since, it is Thanksgiving here in the States tomorrow, if you're listening to this on Wednesday. Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours. And we, and Steve, funny enough, had this idea that maybe we'd talk about a few things that we're thankful for. From the Nintendo side of the fence, which is ironic because you don't celebrate Thanksgiving. But you know what? You're very in the spirit of the holiday, and I appreciate that.
I really want to, just because I really want to experience a pumpkin pie. That's the main reason I want to celebrate Thanksgiving.
I'm telling you, man.
But I'll partake in the thankfulness.
Come visit. Come visit me during Thanksgiving. I'll make you a pumpkin pie.
Am I allowed?
During Thanksgiving?
Yeah, you can come on through. Hey, think about it, right? The original.
Don't you hate the British during Thanksgiving? Isn't that the reason behind this all?
No, well, I guess technically because the Pilgrims, they left England because England sucks, but they were British. So if anything, you could be the Pilgrim.
Okay. Yeah.
You don't really want to be a Pilgrim, I don't think, but
They do some messed up
Take
things.
it. If it gets me pumpkin pie, I'll take kind of thing.
I'll wear one of those dumbass buckle hats. Let's go. So, but before we get into any of that, let me just remind you guys, of course, that this episode of Nintendo Noise is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of November. They are, of course, Andy Radford, Christian Oliveria, Christopher Valenz, Wakahula, and Zaid Ida. Thank you guys so much for your support over on patreon.com/flipscreengames. Speaking of which, of course, the Patreon, best way to go and show your support, just like those fine folks did. You can get all kinds of goodies, like getting your name read on the air. You can get our Patreon exclusive show, One More Thing, where we talk about what's going on in our lives outside the world of games. And on this week's show, Chewy's going to be on it. First guest.
Yeah.
Right? You've never been on...
Next week's show.
Next week's One More Thing.
This week's show's already happened.
Right. Sorry. No, well, this upcoming week. This week. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
No, but I'm going to pretend it did. So on the next One More Thing, you can hear Chewy talk about whatever the hell we're going to drag him through a conversation on. That's the fun of that show. So go check
so
that
many
out.
questions about Thanksgiving, so expect them all to be asked.
I'm down.
I want history. I want a history lesson on One More Thing.
Okay.
I know there's tons of people that have no idea what Thanksgiving's all about.
All right, so that's the thing then, Chewy. We'll have to come with our best Thanksgiving anecdotes and factoids to talk all about the history of Thanksgiving, among other things.
And honestly, you could just tell me nonsense and I wouldn't realize. So I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. Well, of course.
Love Thanksgiving.
We'll be honest with you. It's it's the history of the first time that the Pilgrims came to the New World and fought dinosaurs. So we'll talk all about it. Don't worry.
Yeah.
It's not that
While
interesting,
driving
Tom.
cars.
While driving cars, of course. Yeah. Time travelers as well. But, there's also a bunch of other cool goodies you can get there, like the archive of our Twitch streams and a bunch of other cool stuff. So go check it out if you're so inclined. But if you don't have any bucks to toss our way, no big deal. There are a ton of ways that you can be interacting with us all across the web. Head over to flipscreen.games. That's our website where we have links to our Twitter, our Discord, our email address so that you can write in with questions to the show, the Twitch channel, everything. It's all right there. Go check it out and come be a part of the show. We'd love to hear from you, just like we did from a bunch of fine folks in the community this week during our talking point and the question block. So go check that stuff out. We'd love to hear from you. Write in all the great ways that you can. Join the Discord. Keep the conversation rolling. Come tune in for the Twitch streams. We're there Wednesdays. Steve's doing solo streams. Thursday, we got the gang together, and we're playing some other kinds of video games. So last week, it was Shenmue and Halo. This week, it'll be Shenmue, and then we're going to take a break for Thanksgiving. So, hey, we'll see you next week. Oh, for Mario Party, right? Round 3.
Mario Party.
Chewy's got to come in.
Definitely.
I need a win.
You got to come in and get that W.
Happen.
Or Steve and I need to break the tie. We got to see where this goes. So make sure you tune in for Mario Party. Not tomorrow, but next Thursday. See, I got it right that time. There we go.
Sure.
All right, so let's jump into the Pokemon conversation here. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are out. Obviously, the first big Nintendo release that it feels like we've gotten in a while. It's not really been that long. Metroid was
3 weeks since Mario Party.
That's true. That feels like forever ago, though. So I don't know. I got excited about this one. It's felt like a while since I've had a new Nintendo game to chew on because Metroid's already in the rear view. So I'm a big Pokemon stan as well. So this is one of my favorite generations. Was very excited to get back to this one, despite having some hesitations going into it. Chewy, how far into the game are you, and how are you enjoying your time with it so far?
So I have one badge so far. I haven't done too much. I got peer pressured into trying to reset for shinies, and then I tried it 3 times, and I was like, nope, not gonna happen. I don't need a shiny starter. I don't have the patience for this. I'm too old.
Yeah.
I've accepted that I'm just too far in my life to ever get into that. And so after that, I was like, all right, I'll play properly and go through, the motions and everything. I've been pretty excited to revisit this generation, mostly because the only time I played it was back when they came out 15 years ago, and I played it once. Typically with Pokemon games, I start over and play each one like over and over again, and then that's just kind of how it goes. But this is where I kind of stopped doing that in my life. So like Gen 4, 5, and 6, it's all like, oh, I've played it once, and then 7 as well. Like everything after this, I've played it once, and so now it's like I'm coming back to it, and it's basically a new game to me because I'm like, oh, I kind of remember things, but it's also like, nope. I feel like I've been here for the first time ever.
Yeah.
So
15 years later, right? There's going to be a lot you don't remember.
Yeah. And then the other thing is like, I didn't have the most positive experience with this generation in particular. And it was mostly my fault, but also I feel kind of the game's fault, where
Interesting.
these games, the main thing you'll hear is like, it's a very slow Pokemon game with people always pointing out like how long it takes to kill a Chansey or something like that, I made that whole thing slower for myself by like being in the wrong place trying to catch a Pokemon for like 3 days. I was just like, where is this thing? Why won't it appear? And then I looked it up again and I'm like, oh, it doesn't appear here. And so 3 days lost, and then after that, I was like, man, this game is chugging. I don't know what can make it better at this point. So that's like my tainted experience of this generation. And I'm just like, oh, you know what? I'm going to play it a lot better this time and not worry about a thing. I'm just going to go through the motions. If I get a Pokemon that I want, cool. If I don't, whatever. I'm just going to keep going. So yeah, I basically stopped at the town just after that first badge where you get the Mew and the Jirachi.
Gotcha.
So I'm already a legendary Pokemon trainer. So I won.
Yeah, I'm not too much further than you. I just completed all of. There's like a whole section after that town where you have to go to the weather station and you beat Team Galactic, and you have to like get in and bust out the little girl's dad, and then you get the cast form. Like I just finished that and I'm moving toward the second badge now. So not super far in. But I think it's funny because I think that this game like does have that reputation of being slow and having like particularly the beginning of the game is pretty slow. And I think that's evidenced by what we just talked about. Like we're both a couple hours in and we only have one badge. Whereas like in any other Pokemon game at this point, or at least any of the ones prior to this, I would have already probably been on the third or fourth badge depending on the generation,
Yeah.
So there's definitely like a lot more of that, we're going to slow things down and divert you and have you backtrack a little bit and, kind of like spend some time exploring the map.
How do they go about slowing it down? Is it just that there are more of those like interactions that happen with
it's like
bug
diversions
catchers or in the grass? Okay.
Yeah,
it forces you to go like a long route around and then the shortcut opens up later on or something?
Yeah, like basically like so you get to the first gym, right? And there's a city you go to before you go to the first gym, and there are 3 directions you can go from that city: left, top, or right. And the top, you need Rock Smash to get through. The left, you need Surf. And right is really the only way you can go. So you kind of get funneled there. You go to that city. You beat that gym leader. You get Rock Smash. And then you double back. And you try to go up and through the spot that had been blocked off to you before. And then there's this whole diversion that you can't progress to where you're supposed to go because the bad guys...
Metroidvania.
Yeah, it has a little bit of that where like there... And it's, not to that same degree, right? Where there's not really all this like nooks and crannies for you to explore, but it's more just like, okay, I'm recognizing that I've been to the places I need to go already, but I just can't advance yet, and needing to figure out how you can go through and what are the things you need to achieve before you're allowed to progress forward, that kind of thing.
Does it do that thing like in Metroid Dread where it shows you the areas that are blocked and what skill you need in order to get there, or do you just have to figure it out?
Yeah, it's just like context clues, because like with the Rock Smash, if you go and click on the rock that's blocking, it'll be like, oh, like a Pokemon might be able to break this with a move, but you're like, okay, cool, so I can't do this yet. And then there's a body of water that you just can't get across, but you see that there's another side, and you're like, okay, cool. Like, obviously I can get there at some point, but now's not the time. So it's very much that kind of thing.
See, I never knew any of that stuff when I played Let's Go Pikachu. And I never knew you got any of these skills or anything. And I was amazed when I got in the water. I was like, wow, this is mind-blowing. Like, I would have never have guessed when I was a kid that I could go in the water.
That was something that I remember, was like such a huge thing as a kid, being like, oh my God, like once I unlock, like I remember so vividly the first time I played the game and like, oh, once I get surf, once I get fly, like it's over for these bitches. Like I'm going everywhere, you know?
Yeah. That's one thing that I'm like noticing in this one too, just being, 4 or so generations ahead at this point. I'm like, oh, this is kind of what an older Pokemon game is designed to be. Like, these things are a little bit more, I guess, ingrained into the progress that you make, Because I think by the time you reach Sword and Shield, like, Sword and Shield is a very different Pokemon game in the sense of, like, you got the wild area now, and you can just, like, run around that place. It doesn't, I don't know, the spaces feel more closed off in Diamond and Pearl than I'm used to at this point. So it's kind of like, oh man, I'm playing an older game right now. This is definitely feeling different.
Yeah, it's a shame. I really feel like Gen 4 is like a lot of people ding it for its pacing and stuff like that, but I genuinely like Gen 4 is in my top 3 favorite generations. That was like when they first introduced like the physical special split and everything. And like I feel like they really revolutionized like the battle system quite a bit. But also just in general, I feel like that's the last game that has like the pacing that I want out of a Pokemon game, where it's like there's literally a story and like it's there and it's a framing device, but like it's not in the way. And I feel like Gen 5 was the first one where it was like, oh, the pacing for this is bad, not only because the beginning of the game is super long, but there's so much like let me spin you a yarn, and it's like it's not very good, like, and if you're gonna have a story and it's gonna be a thin story, I'd rather you go the first couple generations of Pokemon / Zelda route, where it's like, yeah, like it's there and I can tell you what it is in a few bullet points, but I'm not spending a lot of time engaging with the story. Whereas like modern Pokemon games have cutscenes and they're not good, they don't add anything really, I really feel like Gen 4 was the, like, I don't know, the last generation that really was still tapped into some of the core design ethos that I feel like we've gotten away from, And it is nice playing a Pokemon game that feels like it has a rhythm that's more what I want, rather than like, okay, cool, like I got to do this thing, let me stop and watch this cutscene, let me talk to 5 characters before I can move on and do something, like I just don't feel like I need that at all. And I feel so much less on the rails, even though I am still on the rails, right? The game is very much directing me in a direction and being like, this is where you need to go. But it's not doing the same thing where I feel like I have a chaperone being like, come on, kids, let's go to the next checkpoint. Like, you know what I mean?
That was the thing you had the issue with in the DS one, right? I remember you talking about how much you hated it, that it held your hand so much.
X and Y, Oros, which is the Ruby and Sapphire remakes that are in that generation, were like kind of where that started. And then Sun and Moon was like worse because you literally have a chaperone, like you have an adult traveling with you, and it's like, oh, this feels terrible. Sword and Shield did a better job of it, I thought, but it was a step.
Then you run into like cutscenes and stuff that's just like really in the way of whatever they built up.
Yeah.
Were there not sort of like rudimentary cutscenes even back in the original Red and Blue? Like you would run into like the professor's kid who was your like swarm enemy, and you like things would happen then.
But it's
and
like 2 or 3 lines of dialogue.
Yeah, but maybe they wanted it to be more, but technical restrictions limited them to what they could get in there, and maybe this was, I guess, where their vision was going.
And I mean, fair enough, but I think that you need to actually have good writing if you're going to do that, Like, that's where it gets sticky for me. Because, like, you're probably right that, like, yeah, maybe they would have written more dialogue if they had the space. But, like, we get more dialogue now, and it's not good or additive. It's just more, and that's not good. Whereas like in this game, there's more than, you know, 1 or 2 lines of dialogue when you're talking to characters, but like it never feels like it lasts that long. It's pretty easy to just be like, okay, you're explaining something to me that I already know. Hey, cool, I'm through it. Let's go back to the game, you know? Whereas like in like Sun and Moon, like you literally have little exclamation points on the map where it's like, run to this corner to get the next cutscene, get another cutscene. And it's like, oh my God, like it's so much. And having a character who's like traveling with you felt like just weight, you know, where like there's weight around your neck of you're always waiting for this character to catch up, or you're trying to catch up to this character or whatever. And, you know, I don't know. I feel like it really takes me out of it.
And I don't know, I feel like it's also at fault of the stories just getting like needlessly complicated in their concepts and stuff. Like where it started out was you just want to be the best, like no one ever was, right? Like that's the whole theme song. That's it. That's all you're trying to do. Catch Pokemon, gotta catch them all, and then become the champion. And now it's like, you're traveling between dimensions. You're, I don't know.
Wait, what is that the story in this one?
Not in this one, but I mean, this was the first one where we started fucking with that stuff, though, because literally the 2 legendaries, right, like on the boxes, Dialga and Palkia, control space and time, and then the third, like God mode legendary, like the, you know, kind of equivalent of like Lugia or Ho-Oh in Gen 2, is God. He's literally God, the God of Pokemon. And it's like,
okay,
we've jumped the shark here. Like, how do you go higher than that? And the answer is you don't. It just gets weirder.
Yeah, and so like you're going to run into trouble with that because these are highly complicated physical concepts that would be hard to explain to an adult, let alone kids, which this is written for. So I don't know. It's just like, why are they making it more and more complicated than they need to? And I think a lot of that is like, they have made a lot of these games and they're like, all right, how do we change this up to make it at least more interesting for people to pick up? Like, what story is going to do that? And
you need to, though. Like, people pick up Call of Duty or FIFA every single year and it's the same game all the time. You know, FIFA never changes, right? And they still pick it up. You could make another Pokemon game that's identical that just had added some new Pokemon.
I would just rather them focus on that. Yeah, like, okay, new decks, new mechanics. Like, that's what I need. I don't need a new framing device where it's like, oh, okay, well, this time you're fighting they're symbols of these families, British monarchy. That makes sense, right? Yeah, cool. It's knights. I don't know. Yeah, throw a Pokeball at the wolf. You got it, right? You're good. Who cares? It's like, what are we doing?
Think about Mario games, for example, though. The framing for that has always been the same. It's Princess Peach is being kidnapped by Bowser and you've got to go save her. Every single Mario game has been the same, and it still is. Even Odyssey was that same story, and it works just fine. Like, I don't think you need to come up with some ridiculous convoluted thing like one of the Pokemon is literally God. That sounds insane.
I just wish they would. Yeah, I wish they would decentralize that stuff, because like when you think about like what are the big story beats that you interact with in like Gen 1 and 2, like the whole segment of like Team Rocket like taking over the radio station, and like it's like a very like regular real world problem where it's like, oh yeah, like some criminals do some bad guy stuff. You could go stop them. It's like, okay, sure. Yeah, I could do that. That's a thing that's believable that me as a a child with an army of radioactive monsters might be able to achieve. But it's like, all right, cool. You're 12 years old? Yeah, you're very much equipped to go fight God. You're the only one who can do it, though. Go ahead. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I just wish they would, if they're going to keep going this direction with like the stories and keep them weird, like they make anime, they make movies and stuff, like add the voice acting in, add some really cool cutscenes that are all animated like this, and I don't know, just commit to
just up the
telling
quality.
the story. Yes, up the quality of telling your story if you're gonna do it.
I just really would love, and we should talk more about these actual games, but I would love to see them have intelligent systems make a Pokemon game.
Yes.
Like, y'all nailed it with Fire Emblem Three Houses. Just do that.
Couldn't you just get someone from the anime team into the writers' room for the games and just be like, "You're doing a pretty good job over there. Everyone seems to like the anime. Just come on down and help us out."
They're not analogous skills.
Probably better than anyone else.
They have to be making Pokemon Conquest too, right?
That's got to be where all the resources are going. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So, bringing it back to these games, I'm curious, have you either of you tried any of the new stuff that they've added in these games? Have you reached that point? Yeah.
I don't think I've gotten far enough to really experience any of the newer stuff. I've seen some of it. Like, I saw where the park is where you can go and like catch the legendaries and stuff. That's in that first city. But they're like, it's not open yet. It's like, oh, okay, I'll come back.
I think the newest thing that I've experienced with this one is like you're no longer kind of just the up, down, right, left control scheme, you know? So there is like kind of diagonal movement. You basically have free movement on the world.
8-way.
I don't think it's great. It's kind of clunky.
You think so?
I miss every single door I'm trying to walk into. I don't know what it is, but I can't like aim my body directly at the door, and I have to like fidget around a little bit just to go into the Pokemon Center.
Did you know if you use the buttons, you can go in 4 directions like old school?
Oh, okay.
So
I might have to do that.
That might be helpful for you to line up.
I consistently overshoot the door or undershoot, and I'm just like, talking to characters, I talk to every single person because I don't know when they're going to give me some item. There's, so you just have to talk to everybody. I have run completely around somebody just trying to face their direction.
I've not had that problem at all. That's so funny.
Yeah,
your Joy-Con drifting or something?
I'm using my Pro controller. I don't know what it is about how this control scheme is working out, but I'm literally just having trouble talking to characters.
They need to add a strafe button so you can just like properly line up, with the shoulders, just going left and right, shimmy on over.
Exactly. Yeah, just let me strafe.
So we had a trilogy here of questions.
Not really a trilogy though. Doc's cheated and stolen Asobi's format and stolen it proper.
Patented 3 questions. It's patented, Doc. You can't just.
And he even said get wrecked Asobi in Discord, so he knows what he's done.
He's slinging shit.
He's stuck 4 questions in here. Look at the last question. That's 2 questions.
That is.
This isn't 3.
Actually,
this is cheating.
If we wanna get really serious about it, it's actually like 5 questions because question 1 is 2 questions.
Yep.
What like question 2
fine because they're all
2 questions, but it's a follow up. Like it's question A, question 1A.
Like, you could segment them together with an and it would be just fine.
Right, exactly. So that's why I feel like that one's cool. But otherwise, this is like a 5 question formula. So maybe you have your own new patent, Doc. You could Pepsi Asobi.
I see 6 question marks total.
It is 6 questions.
It is 6 technically, but if we present the caveat that 2 is technically a 2-part question, it's 5. But either way, this ain't 3 questions. But you know what, Doc? That's okay. We love you. You're one of our Patreon producers. You get your 5 questions, 6 questions asked. It's okay. All right. So Steve, I'm gonna let you read these because you don't know the answers to them.
I don't. I mean, I have thoughts on the style. I can say that one.
Well, I don't care what your thoughts are. You're not playing the game.
Okay, fine.
Step off.
Whatever. But I think it looks like trash before I ask.
How would you know? You've never played.
I've seen videos. Before the game released, Doc says, before the game was released, I was a little nervous on how the chibi style would sit with me. A few hours in, and I'm actually loving the style quite a lot. What were your initial thoughts on the style, and what are your thoughts now?
I agree. My initial thoughts on it were kind of ambivalent. Like I didn't feel strongly about it in either direction, really. Like I think my very initial reaction was like, "Oh, I don't love this," but I didn't have a visceral reaction to it either. Whereas a lot of people just straight up don't like it, hate it, whatever. Now that I'm actually playing the game and I'm in on it and I'm spending time playing rather than seeing it for a flash of a second in a trailer, I actually really like it. I think it's a pretty clever way to try to like have an homage to the original pixel art style without making it a pixel art game. Because it does a pretty good job of kind of recreating a lot of the like look and feel of things from the original game. Like the buildings feel similar. The character models are like very, very the familiar classic ones from the Sprite days, but they are transitioned into this, you know, chibi top down kind of style instead. I think it actually really works. I could still understand why someone wouldn't like it, but I think for me, actually getting my mitts on it and spending some time in the world definitely changed my opinion.
I kind of went the other direction, funny enough. I was more fine with just seeing like those little split seconds of it, because now that I'm seeing it closer, I'm like, I really don't like their feet. I hate them. I just don't like their feet.
That's funny.
So I'm just like, I don't want to spend so much time looking at you little chibi characters. But
What
yeah,
do their feet
initially
look
I was like,
what is it that's so bad about their feet?
I don't know.
I have to pull it up
I
and
just
look
never
it.
cared for them.
I'm gonna look at it
They
now.
remind me of those like there is some like Bratz dolls that I saw commercials for all the
Okay.
time as a kid, and I
Sure.
was just like, no,
Something
I'm
about
not
it.
into this.
Oh, I see it. Yeah.
And so I don't know. I think initially I was like, oh, it's fine.
What's wrong
They're
with those
trying
little
to do
feet?
like.
Oh wait, no, you can't see. What's wrong
Yeah,
with that?
we'll see.
That's fine. That's fine. Look at him.
I
He's
don't know.
cute.
I like
It's
their
fine.
heads
It's
better.
fine there, but I've seen a picture of them when they're like talking with someone or in a cutscene, and I
Yeah,
can
I
see
think
what
that's what it
see what you
is.
mean.
Yeah. Whenever I'm in just like a cutscene with them, I'm like, I don't want to look at you. I'm just gonna look at the text bars
It's
as
like me
closely as
with
possible.
Jambette.
You know what I actually really
Yeah.
like? Have you noticed that the thing that they do, Chewy, where they have the characters roll in and they're in the original pose that the sprite was before they start getting
Yeah.
animated? I really like that. I thought that was a very,
is-
very cute touch.
Yeah, that's pretty cute. But yeah, I think initially I was like, oh, it's fine. They're going for, kind of a callback to what the games were like back then. And now I'm still fine with it overall. I just think like I don't find it as cute as I did when it was just like split second types of things.
I'll tell you what. I really wish they would just release the original versions of these games as well. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not against the remakes, but like, I miss pixel art. I really do. Pokemon
Well,
looks so good
I
in
was
pixel
going to
art.
ask, like, do you think the remake with all of the bells and whistles that they've added, with the park stuff, with the underground stuff where you can build out like your house and things down there and put the stuff in it, would that have been good in like a pixel art style or like a 2.5D like HD thing that Square Enix does? Would you have preferred that
Yeah.
over like the chibi style?
Yeah.
They should Octopath Traveler it for sure.
Yeah, I would, but I mean, like, I'm biased. Like, I like pixel art a lot. Like, I prefer pixel
too.
art to, like, chibi 2.5D. Not 2.5. What do they call it? 2.5D is what I mean.
2D HD.
The one that you're,
HD,
yeah, that's
2D or
different.
something, yeah.
I like that better, generally speaking. But I also recognize that that's way, way more expensive to produce. There's a reason that we go with like this is made in Unity. I'm sure it was very easy to get this style up and running versus
I mean, they've got all the models for the Pokemon, which I presume is the easiest thing. They're all rendered already in,
And the animations
in
and
3D,
stuff.
so they can just pull them in. So it's not a case that we've got to redo all of those in pixel art style.
right.
But don't you think it would be cool to do the effort once in that style
Yes.
and then have those like pixel art versions?
Yeah, I would love that.
Carrying on.
I would absolutely love that. I just don't. I don't want to get my hopes up for something that I don't think will ever happen.
Well, I do think you will get the originals at some point, though, with the rumors of the Game Boy stuff coming to Switch Online. I do think they will add
yeah.
some Pokemon stuff in there.
Yeah, I wish that they did a better job of making legacy software available. I would like if they did what they did on the 3DS with Red, Blue, and Yellow, and Gold, Silver, and Crystal with every generation of Pokemon on Switch, I would buy them all. Like, if it was just like, hey, you can play these games in their original format, but you can transfer Pokemon out of them into the Pokebank and use them in the modern games and all that kind of stuff. Like, you know, it's, oh, we put new servers out so you can play online and you can do all these things that you used to have to be local for. You can do them online. Like, just give me that functionality. That's all I feel like I need. Even though I like these games and like I would continue to buy the remakes too. But you know, I don't know. There's something about the original style that you can't really replicate. You know, like you can call back to it, you can update it, you can do something else, but there's a quality, I think, to pixel art and chiptune that is, you know, we still make games that way for a reason.
Chiptune, I don't really miss. I don't miss the like screeching, horrible noises these Pokemon used to make when you fan them. I like the cute Pika Pika rather than like
Pikachu's literally the only one that does that though.
Well, all of the other ones make that horrible noise.
Yeah,
still?
they all still have like up-res versions of the cries.
Okay. Well, fair enough. I always thought they were like horrible. Like, yeah, it's honestly such stuff of nightmares, some of those things.
But the music though, like, oh my god, like I've made this point before, but it's just like when you have those limitations, like you're so you have to make memorable themes rather than over-orchestrated, you know, just background music, you know?
Before we get onto the music, I want to like go back to Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, because obviously they were remakes as well, but done in a very different style. How do you think the chibi style compares to those games? Would you have preferred them just to continue that style moving forwards, or are you just like, you know, a bit ambivalent and don't really care?
I don't know. I liked the way those games looked. I thought they had a good style. This is just different, and like, I don't know. I don't necessarily have a hard preference one way or the other. Like, you know, I think it's hard to judge with Gen 1 because we've seen Gen 1 done so many times in different ways. It's like, did I need something that felt nostalgic in that way with Gen 1? No, not really, you know? Whereas, like, Gen 4, like, hasn't been remade in 15 years. So, like, having something that kind of harkens back to that style more is appealing to me. Because I miss it, you know? Whereas, like, Let's Go, I remember being like, okay, cool, this is a different style, a different presentation. It's basically a different series. This is trying to do and be something else. And I liked that for that.
Yeah. I think for me, I don't know if I necessarily need like any of the old styles. I think I'm more of like, I would want them to really change the art for the game in general. Like just completely revamp things, because I mean, they make a ton of cute Pokemon art that's like, you know, from them. And I'm like, I want to see some of that make an appearance in a mainline game instead.
Yeah, like I'm reminded of the box art for Legends Arceus looking a hell of a lot better than the game in my opinion. Yeah.
And I that's something I do wish that they were more adventurous with. And I think it's kind of a thing I feel about like Nintendo in general to some degree. Like, because I think Mario's had this problem for a while now, where it's like we decided on what the style is for Mario and it hasn't changed. In like
Zelda did
with Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild, yeah. It was like we're like replicating the N64 games over and over again. That's all we're making for the end of time, seemingly.
Yeah, and then Breath of the Wild was like new art direction, new style, new type of game. Like, you know, obviously everybody says that Pokemon needs that. My hope is that Arceus is that game in a lot of ways, if not, you know, probably not on the level of Breath of the Wild. Let's, you know, temper our expectations there, but they are reinventing the wheel in a lot of ways there. And, you know, I don't know. I would love to see a soft reboot for Pokemon, you know? We don't need to throw out everything away, but I think in the same way we talked about with Animal Crossing like 2 weeks ago with like, pare some stuff back and focus on the core, like what is important to make a good Pokemon game. Because I feel like we've gotten away from that in a lot of ways. And like playing this older game, it reminds me about the things that work for me here that we just don't have anymore, you know? And every time I go back and play one of these older games, I have that same moment with myself where I'm like, no, it's really not that I'm old. It's not that I've outgrown Pokemon. It's that Pokemon has gotten dumbed down. And I don't like that. Like, we don't need to, like, be patronizing to children. Children can play games that are a little more difficult than, here you go. Let's walk you to the next objective, player. Like,
it's mass appeal, though. There is a thin line that they need to go down.
But and is it, though? Because the peak popularity of Pokemon, the game was a fucking mess, right? The original gen is a buggy mess, and people liked it so much it didn't matter.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I do wonder how many kids versus adults were playing those games back then. I'm still curious what the divide is. I would imagine the majority of people that play Pokemon now are in their 20s. It's got to be at that point.
Maybe the average age is, but I think that's the thing is like generally speaking anyway, I think the conventional wisdom is that the Pokemon audience has continued to grow and grow and grow because every new generation you get kids that jump on and that's, you know, their first Pokemon, and the old fogies like me and Chewy keep picking it up and playing it as well, you know? Yeah. But like you see like people who like Joe Merrick from Cerebi has like commented about this, about how like you see nostalgia waves continuing to change in Pokemon, where like for the longest time so much of it was always Gen 1, it was always Gen 1, it was always Gen 1, and now you have this like younger generation of players that didn't play those games, you know, and maybe played them later or as like a retro experience, but like their first Pokemon was Gen 3 or Gen 4, you know, and like I think of like I had a teacher in high school whose kids were playing their first Pokemon games and it was Gen 4, right? So this is Fire Red, Leaf Green for them, right? So it's, I don't know, like the average is probably somewhere in that middle because there's a bunch of literal children and then a bunch of adults who are like nearing, you know, who are in their 30s or older, you know?
Yeah, well, like if there was people in high school, these games came out 15 years ago. They're like maybe 5, 6, I don't know, 10. They're in their 20s and 30s now,
right?
Playing these games, and they're probably going to pick up these remakes and will hit that nostalgia. So I could see that. But anyway, moving on to Doc's second 2 questions. What are your thoughts on the music, and do you think they did the original games justice?
I have noticed a few of the arrangements so far that I really, really like. I'm trying to think of, I think it was either the first town or the first city. I don't quite remember which one it was, but one of the town themes I remember being like, wow, this is a fantastic arrangement of this song. And they sound more orchestrated. They kind of feel like they're in that middle ground where like things are still MIDI, but like it's has a little bit more of that
synthesized orchestra.
Yeah, it's got a little bit more of that element to it, which Pokemon's been doing for a while now. So like it's weird because they feel more modern, but they don't feel so modern that it's like, oh yeah, we're drowning the original melody here. We're like losing what was good about the original arrangement. But they do still feel fresh. So I've been pleasantly surprised. I thought the music direction on this was pretty solid.
Yeah, for me, you know, like I said, I'm so far removed from it that I couldn't tell you how they match up with the old ones, but I've enjoyed the tracks. And I will say, I was talking to Sergio yesterday while we were recording Haken, and he said Gen 4 is one of his favorite soundtracks, and they've done a great job.
Smart motherfucker, that Sergio.
Yeah. So I mean, I trust him with what he has to say. So yeah, I'm sure it's all solid. But for me, I'm like, I can't compare it. I've been too far removed from it.
Something that I thought was nice was I like didn't realize how much I missed some of the like kind of more classic tunes. Like the battle music is like way more akin to the original theme, which we've kind of moved away from a little bit. We get kind of a new one every gen now. So yeah, that was cool too. Like it's scratching a nostalgia itch for me for sure.
Awesome. Well, I have zero. Like, I don't even know what the music would sound like. But it's not chiptune at all. It's very much like orchestra.
It's like,
is there an option to switch between the two? I think I probably know the answer's no to that.
No, of course not. I wish. Yeah. I think it's somewhere between those two things. Like, it's not quite like what we saw with Mario Party Superstars, where it's like, okay, yeah, like these feel like very different because they're more orchestrated.
I love the fact that in Mario Party you could unlock the originals and you could go in and swap them over if you wanted.
I really appreciated that because I switched them all back because I like the original arrangements. You know,
I love the new ones,
and the new ones are good. They're just different, and like they feel like updates to those themes rather than like, oh, let's just recreate this in a different, you know, with full orchestration or something like that. And you know, I don't know. There's little notes that kind of get lost along the way that you know, if you have the nostalgia for it, you have the nostalgia for it, right? So yeah, I feel like it's in a good middle ground between those two things.
All right, so last questions from Doc. What are your overall thoughts with the game, and did you get Diamond or Pearl?
I got Diamond.
Same.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Also Diamond. I originally got Diamond, and then I was like, well, I better just keep following this path.
That's what I always do.
Going with Diamond.
Yeah, I have a very like weird thing that I do where my original version was blue, and every generation I try to pick the one that feels more like blue. So like Silver was my main version in Gen 2. I was Sapphire Gen 3. I was Diamond Gen 4. That's the thought process that goes behind it. And I also like Dialga better than Palkia, just design-wise, so that also made it kind of easy to make that choice back in the day. So yeah, that's the direction that I went. And I think overall, I definitely want to put more time into the game before I kind of render a final verdict about it. But I think my initial thoughts are, I think it's good. You know, I think it feels like a good, or at least good enough remake of this generation. I think that there's an argument to be made that, you know, maybe I would have liked to see them apply more TLC in certain ways. You know, I think there's definitely kind of an air around this game of like, you know, they had another studio do it. It's in this different style that people are kind of mixed on. Like, it doesn't have
And we had that thing with the version that leaked that was on the eShop and the version that's on the cartridge is very, very unfinished. So it seems like this day one patch, which I think is the first time they've ever had a major day one patch like this that adds content in. Like these stuff like the opening credits wasn't even in the game on the version on that cart.
Yeah, which I mean, I don't really feel any kind of way about, if I'm being honest. Every other, like you said, every other game.
No, I know, but it's interesting when you think about the Pokemon development cycle and Nintendo's development cycle usually is we finish the game, then it goes through like a 6-month localization period in QA, and then we release the game. Whereas I guess they didn't have to really go through that localization process in the same way because I presume a lot of the stuff was taken from the original games.
Probably.
And so maybe this was a little bit more like down to the line.
Yeah. That's a thing where, like, you know, you take whatever you want away from that. The criticisms around that, my attitude is very much like, oh, you illegally pirated a leaked game and downloaded it early and it didn't work for you? Oh, well, maybe you shouldn't have done that. You know, that's my take, right? Like, so far, like, I haven't experienced glitches. I haven't run into any issues like that have impeded my, you know, my progress or my ability to enjoy the game. So, I'm sure that they exist. I'm sure I might see one at some point. But for me right now, I don't feel like I can comment on that, or I feel like that adds much to the, conversation in the way that I think some people might argue that it does personally, I think the last thing I was going to say was that I think it's also upsetting that this game doesn't have some of the updates that were made in Platinum, which is the third version. I have always felt kind of shitty that's kind of shitty, because like similarly with like Oros, right? Like we got Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. We didn't really get a lot of the content from Emerald. I believe some more of those quality of life updates were kind of brought in and put in those games, but it would be nice to see them, because most people, the stuff that Chuy was talking about earlier about how the pacing is criticized of the original versions of these games, most folks agree that Platinum fixes the problems of those games very well. So it's kind of a shame that rather than just getting these two, we didn't just get a Platinum remaster, or like that we didn't have some of those things brought backward. And I think where that gets sticky for me is this is a $60 game. And I feel like for a $60 remake, which was probably cheaper to produce than a normal Pokemon game by quite a bit, I feel like some of those not quality of life, but like those extra care TLC type things should be here, I don't know. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say that, like, definitively Pokemon games are not worth $60, right? Like, I'm not here to necessarily make that argument, but I think this game would have felt a lot better at $40. And I think the things about it,
price, basically.
I'm sorry?
The original price, basically.
Right, yeah. And the idea that, like, Nintendo or I guess, Game Freak or the Pokemon Company, whoever makes the decision of what the boxed copy ends up being. But I would imagine
Nintendo.
I was going to say, I would imagine it's Nintendo.
It's 50 in the UK, not 60. There's only 260 games. They're Zelda and Mario.
I feel like Nintendo has tiers of games that they release at $60 because they know they can get away with releasing them at $60 rather than they're actually worth that. And I'm kind of increasingly frustrated by that. And I don't necessarily think that this game like pushes me in that way too hard, but the idea that this is effectively the same game that I bought 15 years ago, but it just costs $20 more, when inflation already makes that more money, doesn't feel great. And that's easier to swallow with Sword and Shield, where, yeah, you can look at Sword and Shield and say, okay, well, maybe the graphics should be better, maybe this should be better, maybe that should be better. But, like, it's new. There's innovation there, right? Like, we built, this wild area out. We did a whole new dex. Like, there's work that goes into making a new Pokemon generation, whether you like it or not. And the idea that, okay, well, it was a lot cheaper to produce for the 3DS than it is on the Switch. The game should cost more now. I was able to swallow all of that and justify all of that to myself enough that I didn't ding them for it at the time. Whereas playing this game, I have had the thought of like, yeah, this is $60. Like, that's probably too much, I don't feel like burned. I don't feel like you shouldn't go out and buy it to that degree, but like even $10 cheaper would feel a lot better for a game that is, I think, decidedly a smaller, less labor-intensive experience than Sword and Shield was to develop, but they cost the same amount of money. And like copy-paste that to Pokemon Let's Go, it's like same deal. It's like, is this really a $60 game?
But you didn't know about Pokemon Sword and Shield at that point, because it was like, this is the first Pokemon game on Switch. Wow, it's like HD for the first time. They've had to redo all of these assets and all these models in 1080p for the first time. So there actually was probably quite a lot of work that went into that. And obviously they just used those assets again for for Sword and Shield.
Yeah.
I can see your frustration with it. All Pokemon games in the UK are £50. They're not 60, but even still, that equates these as like the same tier of game. And I would definitely, just from looking at it, say that this is not on the same level as Sword and Shield.
And that's fine. Like I don't have a problem with that. But
it should be reflected.
Yeah, I feel like at least to some degree, and or if you
how much was like the Mystery Dungeon DX? How much was that one?
There are no full release Nintendo games that are not $60 in the United States.
Oh, okay.
WarioWare.
That was $50. You're right.
50.
That's like the only one.
And the upcoming brain training. What is it? Big Brain Academy. That's 30.
So okay, so they're willing to experiment with it. So
they've got their budget titles still.
Yeah, just not ones with the word Pokemon on the cover.
Yeah, or Kirby, or Yoshi, or whatever, right? Whatever else. So I don't know. I like that is kind of the one sticking point that I feel like I have with this game right now. Is like overall, to answer Doc's question, I'm having a great time. Like, I love Gen 4. I have so much love and nostalgia for this era of Pokemon. I love this Dex. I am really excited to check out some of the new stuff. Like, I'm having a great time. But I think it gets harder and harder to swallow the idea that, like, all these games are priced the same when the same level of work is not going into all of them. At least that's my perception from the outside, because there's an argument to be made to what you said as well, Steve, right? Where like, well, this is the first time a Pokemon game's been made by an outside studio. This is the first Pokemon game they've ever made. It's the first time a Pokemon game's been made in Unity. All of those things, may have impacted development costs and all that stuff. I don't mean to be flippant about that. I get really frustrated when people are flippant about what games cost. So I, don't want to come off that way. But it is something that I have thought about once or twice while I've been playing. And I can't quite come up with a good reason why it's $60.
I mean, I think probably part of their reasoning is they know this probably won't sell anywhere near as many as Sword and Shield, because it's not a mainline Pokemon. It
might have sold more if it was cheaper.
It is, but it's a remake. But they probably have done like the internal calculus of keep it at 60 and it sells this much, we make this much. But if we reduce it to 50, then we make this much. And they probably got like a target in mind that they want to hit.
Yeah.
But that being said, you can already get this in the UK. It's for £42 at Argos. So you can get a deal on it if you shop around.
Yeah. And I do want to just, again, to circle back, like, 90% of this conversation was positive, right? So I don't want to end on a down note. I think the game is great. I think if you have nostalgia for Gen 4, it'll scratch the itch for you. I think if you want to scratch the Pokemon itch, it'll scratch the itch for you. I think if you've never played Gen 4, this is a perfectly good way to experience this generation for the first time. I don't know that I'd argue that it's the best way or the definitive way. I think I need to get further through it before I can make that call. But I have a feeling that even on the other side of it, I would argue that there would be value for you to go back and play the original, which is not quite what you want, right? Like, I walked away from Link's Awakening feeling like if I was going to recommend anybody play this game in 2022 or 2021, whatever, right, this would be the way to do it. I don't know that this is going to quite hit that bar in terms of just comparing the games pound for pound, but I think the fact that it's on the Switch, that it's, more accessible, obviously, that it allows you to, leverage these Pokemon in a modern way. Those are all things that are valuable. So, depending on the kind of player you are, you might disagree.
Yeah. I think, oh man, that price thing is, it's complicated too sometimes by like how much does it cost to buy a used copy of Diamond too nowadays.
Right.
I think, depending on where you're shopping from, you can find it cheaper than other places, but I think on GameStop it was like $70 or $80 for a copy, and So, to some extent, it does cost less than those do now. So
Are they
if
still
there's
on
a way to play them.
the 3DS eShop?
They
Did
never
you play
were.
them that way? Oh, they never were.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think he's ever made it there. It's not till the 3DS games and now like the original Pokemon games, but yeah. I don't know. It gets complicated, but to your point too, like I'm having fun with it. For me, it's basically a brand new game since I haven't played for 15 years. So yeah, it's a good time.
I'll take it. And yeah, we're gonna talk a lot more about Pokemon, so we'll have some more conversations around it as we get deeper into it. And we'll have to invite AJ from Fanatics 4 on for his first time on the show. That's a bit. He always says it's my first time on their show, so I'm saying it's his first. I know he's been on the show before. Don't worry. My mind's not that gone yet. But we'll have to have him come on through and talk Pokemon with us as well, because he and I love to get into it. So that'll be a good time as well. So keep your eyes peeled for that. So let's jump into our talking point for this week, where we're gonna talk about what we're thankful for from the world of Nintendo. We got some good comments here from the listeners as well. So we'll do this first one. This is one from Zaid, one of our Patreon producers, who wrote in and said, I am in love with the Gen 4 remakes, and seeing as this was the Pokemon game I spent the most time with as a kid, I'm so thankful for what we got. It's been great traversing these areas again and enjoying the simple fun that Pokemon can provide. I can't wait for Legends Arceus now. That's a good one. It's a nice transition one too. It's all about Pokemon. Mm-hmm. I very much appreciate that. Thanks for writing in, Zaid. This next one comes from friend of the show and a Patreon supporter, Sierra Plus Ultra. Go check her out on Twitch. She wrote in and said, I'm thankful for the escapism Animal Crossing has given me from the hell that is this reality, and the little community I found in Smash Ultimate. And I'd go as far to say Nintendo as a whole.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think Animal Crossing saved so many people last year. Especially like beginning of the pandemic lockdown, it was like, man, this is just, I can go and escape on a island somewhere which I can't do in real life, and I can go to see friends. It's a reason for me to speak to people and do things over the internet that I can't do in person. And I remember all of the streams we did with the community. They were so fun, just being able to go and visit other people's island. And the first time we went down over to like Mega Man's island, and it was like, oh my god, there's a shark, because it was the first time we'd seen one, because they were in the southern hemisphere and we were in the northern hemisphere, and we were like, oh my god, this is amazing. And just like the realization of how wide and how big that game was, it was awesome.
That game was my only source of serotonin for a while. There was definitely a period where I was like, oh my god, the world outside, it looks fucking bleak. And yeah, Animal Crossing was like a much needed lifeboat for sure.
Yeah. Well, you know me. I agree with this one.
Yeah, that's definitely one for you, Chewy. And then this last one comes from Matthew Murphy, another one of our Patreon supporters, who wrote in and said, her, and it was just a gif of Bayonetta.
I'm so happy that you got the announcement of Bayonetta 3's release date. Like, it's awesome. Like, what better thing could have happened for you? I guess, like, what things are we thankful for? I think the thing I'm most thankful for from Nintendo this year is a new Mario Party, and the fact that they did it so well. They nailed the online.
God,
it was just like perfect. All of the boards are awesome. It's such a good variety, and they're also different. Some of the mini games they picked are my all-time favorites. There's some duds in there. That one with the skateboard, and you're like ground pounding to get PT Piranha to chase after. It's impossible for the three people to win. But for the most part, that game is phenomenal. It's one of my favorites of this year.
That game is a hard 9 out of 10 for me, and the only thing it needs to do to become a 10 out of 10 is to put out DLC.
Yes. Yeah. As soon as it gets like a season pass, that's like,
it's a perfect game.
If it's free, too, 11 out of 10.
I think it probably will be. Did you see they just did like the free DLC or like the free update to those Mario cars, the remote control cars you can
Oh,
get?
yeah.
Added like
Yeah.
a co-op thing and like new
Yeah.
modes and all sorts of stuff. It's crazy. They just keep putting out free updates, which are borderline DLC.
I'm thankful for free updates from Nintendo. That's sure. I would definitely echo some of these sentiments. I would definitely say I'm thankful for the Gen 4 remakes that they finally exist. I've wanted one for a long time. 15 years later, which, man, that makes me feel old as fucking dirt. But hey, okay. Apparently, it's been 15 years since I was in high school. That's awful. But you know, hey, thankful that blood's still pumping and that I still love Pokemon. That's a good one.
Very good one.
Yeah, and I would definitely say in general, I think I'm thankful for I think Nintendo is so unique in this industry. Like, they have a quality to their games, and I don't mean like quality in terms of like, oh, I'd give this a 10 out of 10. Like, there's
The
a
Nintendo seal of quality seal of approval.
it's like not even that, right? It's like they have something that's like ineffable. Like, they have a certain wabi sabi that's just like, it's the special Nintendo sauce, you know? And like, their games have such a different flavor, like ethos, you know? They approach games in a different way. They think about games in a different way. And I think there's a reason that, you know, they connect with young people, and I think they help older people feel young and like connect with that part of themselves in a way
definitely.
that not a lot of art can. You know, I think Disney has that similar vibe for people, right? Where it's like it's connecting you back to this, like, you know, that inner child, right? This part of you that like the rest of the world has made so cynical, you know? I feel like I tap into that a little bit when I'm playing Nintendo games, and like, especially a good Nintendo game. Like a really good one, you know? When I booted up Brilliant Diamond and I got to the opening with Professor Rowan and he's like talking about welcome to the world of Pokemon. Like, I had just that like involuntary smile, you know, of just like, this really is a comfort food, man. You know, it feels good. It feels like coming home after a long trip, you know? And that's something that is pretty uniquely Nintendo, at least for me. And I'm thankful that they make art that can make me feel that way, you know? And that so many people resonate with. And I think that's why you see so many Nintendo communities online, right? Is that like folks just want to love Nintendo and share that love. And I think obviously there's a lot of toxic people in this space, but I feel like especially in the Switch era, there's just such a genuine enthusiasm for Nintendo and for them to do well and to succeed. And to, when they get something right, like we're like Mario Party, right? We're like, oh, I can't believe they did it. It's amazing, you know? And there's that,
Finally.
there's that heat, you know, that like you get. It's the Nintendo Direct, right? Like it's palpable, man, you know?
I mean, you would see that with like every Smash Fighter reveal, the like euphoria that you could feel from the fans when they like nailed it. You know, that final one where Sora got in. I mean, it did nothing for me because I'm not a Kingdom Hearts fan, but I know it was the most voted for and most requested Smash Fighter. So it's amazing that they finally made it into the game.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess just to leave it on this note, and then I'll pass it off to Chuy, is like I definitely say to echo Sierra's point about the community, you know, like this show, the, you know, friendships I have with you guys, and, you know, the connections we've made in the community, and you know, all the cool opportunities that we've gotten, and, you know, all the streams and all that fun time that we've had, right? We were all brought together because we all love Nintendo, and that's special, you know, that that games are really a powerful tool for for bringing people together, right? And like I know people all around the world now just because of Nintendo, just because of the Nintendo Switch. That's pretty cool.
I mean, that's how we all met. It was like, through loot bots. And thank you so much to everyone who followed us. Like, we honestly were shitting ourselves when we like branched off and decided to do Flip Screen, and we were like, Chuy, you're going to join us, come and do the show. And it was like an unknown entity. And, I'm so thankful that Chuy joined us on the journey.
Absolutely.
I don't think the show would what it is without you.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that aspect too. I feel like it's just been a cool way to just be excited and enjoy my time, I think there's like a lot of things that can bring you down, and just knowing that there's some fun games to play out there, some fun connections to make with other people who are playing those games too. It's nice. It's definitely a comfort for sure. And I think to get, I guess, specific about something like this year, I'm thankful for. I'd say I'm thankful that like, though Nintendo may be slow to address some of the things people are asking for and everything, sometimes they do pull through, and Metroid is a good one to get for the year. I played my first 2 Metroid games this year, literally this year. I played Super Metroid over the summer and then Metroid Dread, and now I'm just like, cool, I'm a Metroid fan. This is awesome. So like, even as slow as they can go with like putting out some stuff sometimes, I'm like, I'm glad they don't drop it completely.
You know what? And like, yeah, like, shout out to them, I guess, for picking their moment, right? Like, it was how long since the last proper Metroid, and they fucking got it right. So worth the wait, I guess.
And it was, I'd say, a really good year to do so. Like, this one felt like a year that was more. For gamers like me, I think, appreciated it when you're getting like all of those kind of wacky titles like WarioWare, Mario Party, and even the upcoming like Big Brain Academy. Like, all of that stuff is just like, I eat that up because it's just the weird games that aren't too serious and everything. And then to have like Metroid drop in there and be like here's the big kid game, everyone go and play it. And I'm like, cool, yeah, I can use a big kid game right about now. Sounds good.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think it was a great year to drop it, and it only took me how many years to become a Metroid fan? All of them. So
and how many hours to defeat the final boss?
Oh, I don't even know. I kind of wish it like tracked like how long you actually played versus, I don't know. That's another conversation. Switch, please fix that. Give us real
it's like
stats.
15 hours or more.
Uh-huh.
All right. Well, thank you all for writing in with what you were thankful for this Thanksgiving from the Nintendo side of the fence. This was a fun little way to end the show. I appreciate the idea of taking some time to show some gratitude. I think it's real easy to harp on the negative, and I know I am far too often guilty of that. So nice to take some time to call out some of those positive things, and to hear from you fine folks, because you are definitely something I am very thankful for. So thank you again for your time. Thank you for caring about the show and tuning in every week. It means a lot to us. Before we get out of here, let me remind you of all the cool places that you can find us and all the cool ways you can show your support for the show. Head over to flipscreen.games. That's our website, flipscreen.games. We have links to everywhere we are all across the web. We got the Twitch channel. We got the Discord. We got the social media. We got the email address, all of which you can use to write into the show. You could go check out our Twitch channel where we stream on Wednesdays and Thursdays. You could go check out our Patreon and become a Patreon producer, or get access to one more thing, where next week we're going to make Chuy talk about stuff. It's going to be great. Go check it out. All right. There's some great stuff there for you. A lot of it is freely available for you to do. So go check it out if you haven't already. And I'm going to issue the challenge again as we move into, next week. We got the holiday gift guide. We got a lot of stuff where we need to hear from you folks. So if you've never written in the show, take the Pete challenge and go right into the show. And, get your thoughts right on the air. We'd love to hear from you. All right. So for Nintendo Noise, I've been Pete. He's been Steve. Wait, hold on, I gotta look at the thing. He's been Steve. He's been Chuy. We'll catch you next week. Goodbye, everybody.